All right, my friends. Welcome back here to Facebook and Real Estate Bites. This is episode number 40. 40 weeks in a row I've done this little program and it continues to grow. And I appreciate you guys for coming back and for watching. I appreciate you for sharing it with friends and family. I'm trying to bring quality information that you guys could take back to home, back to work, whatever. Share it with friends. Use it in your own real estate endeavors. If there's an item or a topic that you guys want to hear about, please leave it in the comments. And I'll get to it and we'll discuss it here on Real Estate Bites, which we do every Friday at noon, live here on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. This week's topic is the FHA and VA loan, government-backed loans in general, though, so that also includes USDA. I want to talk about what about those government-backed loans you should be afraid of, whether you're a buyer or a seller. But before we do that, let's get our little weekly chuckle on here. No joke, right? And I'll tell you, I don't think, and obviously this is quite an exaggeration, but I don't think we're going to see relief anytime soon. I don't see how we're going to see relief outside of some major economic event, God forbid. But for now, it looks like the housing market is going to stay expensive. All right. So we'll talk a bit more about that when we get to the statistics later on. So the topic of the day, the FHA, the VA, the USDA loan, and why you should be scared of them. Well, you should not. You shouldn't be scared of them. And I bring this up because I have this conversation so frequently with buyers and with my sellers. They think that an FHA loan, and this is particularly coming from the seller standpoint because buyers sometimes don't have an option. Sometimes their only and oftentimes their best option is FHA. But I talk to sellers all the time who just think that a contract, a purchase agreement coming through to them, an offer coming through with FHA or VA on it is taboo. It's something that they shouldn't touch. And I don't understand why. And I don't understand where the prejudice comes from. I can't help but believe that oftentimes, especially when I'm representing the buyer and I'm putting paper across to another agent, a listing agent, and they tell me almost immediately that their seller doesn't want to work with FHA or VA, I can't help but think that us agents are the ones who are putting these fears in the minds of our clients and agents. What are you doing? Why are we doing that? Sellers, you got to understand, especially if you're selling, say, a house under $200,000, a lot of the buyer pool out there are going to be people who come with FHA. If you're selling 175 and less, a lot of your buyer pool are going to be first-time home buyers who oftentimes need FHA because they don't have equity from the sale of a home to put down on this new purchase. So oftentimes they're going to be FHA because, they might not have a boatload of cash in their checking account or their savings account. They may have enough to put down. They may have enough to pay for their closing costs. And that's about it. So FHA is nothing to be afraid of. People, I get to go, will this pass FHA inspection? Will the I heard all this stuff about the FHA inspection. Guys, the FHA inspection, or better known as an FHA appraisal, it's not as thorough and it's not as critical as you think it is. So an FHA appraiser, and that's all it is. It's an appraiser. The same appraiser that does a conventional, the same appraiser that does any kind of appraisal will also do FHA, VA appraisals. And they're going to come in, a general home inspection takes 2 to 3 hours. And that inspector is going to look at the roof, all the way down to the foundation and everything in between. Every system, they're going to run appliances. I mean, they're going to do a very thorough investigation into the quality and condition of that property. An appraiser is not going to do that. Even if it's FHA or VA, what they're going to do is they're going to show up. They're going to spend a half hour at the property. They're going to take a bunch of pictures of each room. They're going to take some measurements around the exterior. Then they return to their office. They upload those pictures and they kind of do their investigation via the pictures that they took at their office. And, you know, there are certain items that they're looking for that they may flag, but let's be real. They're not climbing on a roof. Okay. They're not pulling the cover off of an electrical panel. They're not running appliances. They're not doing those things that are going to uncover big ticket items. They're looking for common and relatively inexpensive health hazards, right? So they're going to look for GFIs that are missing from where they should be. They're going to look for, peeling paint, like peeling paint, guys. You know, they don't want your kids eating the paint chips and getting lead poisoning, even though I don't think kids can get lead poisoning from eating paint chips. But that's what they're looking at. They're looking at things like, does the discharge pipe from your hot water tank, is it in copper? And does it terminate from, less than 6 inches from the floor? Small things like that, that usually if things are flagged in an FHA appraisal, they're very simple and relatively inexpensive to fix. The only time it's ever really seemed to be much of a hassle is when they ask for things to be repainted. And usually it's simply because people don't want to put in the time and the effort to do it. But, when you're selling a home in the winter and FHA, they call out peeling paint somewhere and you can't paint in the winter. Oftentimes you need to do an escrow holdback. You got to get an estimate from a professional, do an escrow holdback. When the weather clears up, the professional comes in, does their thing. They get paid out of that escrow holdback. Not a big deal, guys. It's not a big deal. Sellers, do not be afraid of these FHA and VA offers. Oftentimes when you eliminate a large part of your buyer pool by not being willing to deal with FHA, you might be getting rid of the best potential offer that could come through. You might be getting rid of the ability to play a field of offers and get those people to bid against themselves and one another to get the best possible offer for yourself, right? Don't pass up the FHA offer. There's nothing to be scared of. There could be here's another thing to consider too, for buyers and sellers alike. FHA usually is about half a point less per interest rate than a conventional loan. So buyers might qualify for a conventional loan. They might have enough for a down payment, but a half a point, and I've seen it as high as 80 basis points for FHA loan, less than what it would be for a conventional loan on the interest rate. And that is a huge difference in the monthly payment. That's a huge difference in the life of the loan. And so a perfectly qualified buyer might want to go FHA just because it saves them money. And you can't fault them for that, right? And it's funny because I've had this happen recently where I brought a buyer and they could qualify both conventional and FHA. They had a healthy down payment, but the difference between the FHA loan and the conventional loan was $7,000 that they could keep in the bank account and a lower monthly payment. That's a huge deal for people. So don't be afraid of these loans, and agents, stop scaring the crap out of your sellers about these loans, because you're doing them a disservice. You're doing yourself a disservice, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you're not looking at any potential offer type. And if your house is in decent shape, just decent, whether it's outdated, you should be willing to accept and look at FHA and VA loans. If your house is in such poor repair that FHA wouldn't cover it because it's in such bad shape, well, of course, then you don't bother. But if it's in decent shape, if it's in a typical livable condition, by all means, you should be looking at FHA and VA loans. VA, for that matter, used to be a big pain in the butt for people because VA requires a pest inspection, a wood destroying insect inspection. And they used to make it so that the seller had to pay for that. The VA buyer was not allowed to pay for their own pest inspection that was put on the seller. Well, post-COVID, all these VA buyers were losing everything because you had people putting in all these wacky offers where they're buying season tickets to the Guardians for their potential, for the seller, and just doing crazy stuff like that. And so, okay, you're going to make me pay for a pest inspection? Never mind. I've got 4 other offers over here. Nobody's asking me for that kind of stuff. Well, in response to that, at least in the state of Ohio, they got rid of that requirement. Now it doesn't matter who pays. The pest inspection still has to be done, but it doesn't matter who pays for the pest inspection. So they got rid of a number of barriers in front of those folks, and do not be afraid. Here's another thing too. I get asked all the time, what are they going to call out in this house? If I've got an FHA buyer or maybe even a seller, what are they going to call out? I don't know. Here are the things that I think they might call out. But these appraisers, FHA appraisals, I should say, can be some of the most inconsistent things that I witness in this industry. Things that I think for sure they're going to call out are oftentimes ignored, and things that I think shouldn't be a problem are oftentimes called out. And you just never know what you're going to get into in between. I mean, I've had buyers, like, we just knew that they were going to call out all the flaking paint around the windowsills and stuff like this. And my buyers were perfectly prepared to go in and do all that work so that the seller didn't have to worry about, because they wanted to win this property. And they never even showed up on the appraisal report. Like, this happens all the time on deals, all the time. So buyers, if FHA makes sense for you, go for it. Sellers, if you see an FHA offer, don't run scared. There's no reason to. Things may come up, things may not come up. Will it slow things down a touch? Will it be annoying? It might be, but if it's a matter of thousands of dollars in difference from one sale price to the next, it's worth a little bit of annoyance, right? So don't be afraid of FHA. Don't be afraid of VA. Embrace it. These are things that help people afford homes, that help people buy homes, and that help you sell your home. All right. FHA and VA are a good thing. So that said, let's move on to this week's statistics. All right. Here we are. Number 40. Let me enlarge this a little bit. Episode number 40. All right. So you can see inventory's creeping up. This week, when I looked it up, there were 344 single families and condos for sale. You can see it has continued to increase. We are entering the selling season, right? Another reason why not to be scared of FHA. I mean, let's go, baby. Let's sell some homes. 344 houses for sale. We still have inventory issues, especially when you compare it to the next line, which is the demand line, which is representative of demand in the marketplace. Last week, there were 85 closings. That's the most that we've seen. Let's see. Let's go back to last year. There was 82 back in August, 103 back in September. Okay, so 85 is the most since last September that we've seen in a week. So again, the point remains, demand remains flat. Even though we had the least amount of sales ever last year, if you look at the graph, demand remains flat. Inventory, on the other hand, is way, way low. Okay, of the homes sold last week, the median square foot was 1,567 square feet for the house. The median value was $225,000. Median price per square foot was $165.21. The average days on market ticked up a little bit to 53. And you see we had a little bit of relief in rates over this past week. This morning, the market opened at 7.37% for a 30-year conventional note. Last week's big sale of the week occurred again in Avon, right around the same price point there at $690,000. This was over on Vineyard Park. Let's take a look at it. Another nice, big, beautiful brick colonial in Avon, 4-bed, 3.5 bath, 4,500 square feet, most likely includes the basement, nearly a half-acre lot, $153 per square feet. Okay, take a look at some of these pics. Love that office. As you would imagine, for 690 grand, it's a pretty home. Looks like at some point they updated and replaced the oak finishes with your traditional white casing and trim. Yeah, you could tell. See, these oak cabinets were original in 04. That was the style back then. You saw the railings on the staircase; they were oak. I'm sure when the house was built, a lot of this trim was oak as well. But as they upgraded and modernized, they put what has become typical white trim. I'm guilty. Trim in my house is white. Beautiful fireplace, floor to ceiling brick or stone. Lots of natural light coming in that place. Good job on the photos. Love the tray ceiling in the master. See, they got the yoga studio in the back there. Very nice. Beautiful home. All right. That'll do it for this week's Real Estate Bites. Again, if this is good information, please share it. Please share the show. Tell people about it. We're here every Friday at noon. And as always, take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. I love you, people. See you next time.